Well, welcome. Thanks for coming, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
my
you having
pleasure.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we met, God, over a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
I was
it's
actually
been a
at my
while.
old office. I can time it by the timestamp I was at that office. But you were at a different place. But before we start in the business, let's start with before the business. How did you even get into the business?
Yeah, so it was funny. I was working in finance at the time, and a buddy of mine who was in the mortgage industry actually said, "Hey, I like what's going on in real estate right now, and I think that you would be a great fit for that. You're already doing real estate-based activities as far as the prospecting and client servicing is going." He's like, "Let me introduce you to a couple brokers and a couple teams that I know here well in the valley, and just see if it's a fit." So I ended up taking him up on that. And the following week, I interviewed with like 5 or 6 different teams and different brokers here. And I also interviewed with a couple other financial firms, just thinking that I was going to make a move from the position that I was currently in. And I ended up favoring the real estate side. I'm like, real estate sounds like this is really where I want to be. So
Really?
we made the move.
That's cool. Now, what in the finance side, were you capped at where you were at, or what even solicited like, hey, I might even entertain, like he makes this offer and you're like, yeah, let me look at it versus I'm good where I'm at and I've got this ladder that I'm climbing.
Yeah, so in the finance space, where I was at as an FA is I was a junior advisor. So I had a senior advisor that I was working with, but you have a base salary and then you have commissions and earnings and stuff like that on top of that. But it's hard to create a book when you're first getting started those first few years. So, compensation played into it a little bit, but I think the bigger issue for me was, when you're working in a corporate finance, they want the big accounts. They want the people that have 10, 15, 20 million dollars. And I kind of wanted to help the little guy. I'm like, I want to help people that don't have money figure out how to have money and use money and have knowledge about money. And so I'm like, where could I position, my efforts that would align with that? And I was like, I really like real estate. I had helped my parents flip properties growing up. I've been involved in a lot of real estate stuff that I didn't even really consider real estate at the time. But looking back, I was like, oh yeah, I really do enjoy real estate. I like this whole process. I like the renovation process. I like the flip process, long-term tenants, holds, that kind of thing, allocating real estate into your investment portfolio. So I just said, let's give real estate a shot.
That's solid. So just using a different vehicle rather than
Yeah.
the money and stocks and bonds and things like that. Like,
Yep.
hey, let's use real assets, real estate.
Right. Yeah, a way to create relationships and still stay in, sales and entrepreneurship, but just a different avenue.
Now, did you find building your book different in real estate? Because obviously you're starting in real estate. Now I got to build my own brand, so to speak, of that work versus, like you said, hey, it's really hard starting your book years into the game of the finance world. Did you find it different or is the similarities there?
There's a lot of similarities, but there are some differences too. When you talk about real estate, it's an attainable thing for anybody, if they take the proper steps to get into that position. I think with finances, other than like 401ks that are company directed or, IRAs where you're going to put, 6,000 or whatever the limit is away per year, it's kind of a low barrier of entry. And then you get into the actual stock portfolio and the ETFs and the mutual funds and the trading and all that kind of stuff. So real estate, I think, is very it's a vehicle that a lot of people can get into and they'll find themselves in it at some point in their lives. So for me, I looked at that and said, is there a way that I can help educate people and get them to that point so when they are ready to make that decision, they're educated and they know the direction that they'd like to go?
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Plus, I mean, for me, I always think real estate is a bigger lever. I like both stocks and bonds. I have both, and real estate. But when I think of stocks versus real estate, I always say, man, real estate is just a lower, like you said, lower barrier of entry to get into. Even though I put a little bit down, it's a big asset that's growing.
Right.
Right.
And it's leverage too, which I think that in a lot of financial scenarios, stocks, mutual funds, all that kind of stuff, it's like a 1-to-1. But with real estate, I mean, you can put a 5% down payment and you have the other 95% of the actual asset that you're owning, and you can use that in leveraged ways to, create wealth along the way and start to build your financial portfolio.
I love that. I love that. Now, so over the couple of years I've known you, I've seen almost this, I don't want to say growth, transition, but how your business has grown, but obviously seeing your activities. Like, what has changed from the first year or so that you were in business to where you are now?
I think the biggest thing that changed in recent months or about this past year, the biggest thing that's changed is I started treating this like a business. So my background is business. I've been in entrepreneurship since I was 17, and I owned a retail store with my brother at the time.
What'd you own?
So it was actually like a paddleboard rental shop in
Where?
Minnesota.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So because there's a lot of lakes in Minnesota, a lot of water, we lived in one of the towns that had like hundreds of lakes around it. And my brother had actually just gotten done graduating from the University of Hawaii, and he liked the sport of paddleboarding. So he's like, hey, we have a lot of lakes here. Why don't we implement this activity here where there's going to be a huge opportunity for it? And so anyways, he came up with the idea, and he's like, yeah, let's run it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we got a little retail space. I was a junior in high school. He was a couple of years out of college at that point. And we just ran with it. It was really cool. That was like my first real experience with entrepreneurship and like running a business at 17 while I was still going to school, playing sports, doing everything else. But it was, it
How long
gave
did
me
you do that for?
We did it for 6 years.
Wow. Did you have employees and
We had
the whole thing?
employees. Yep. We had employees. We had, a lot of revenue coming through the doors, which was actually pretty cool for a seasonal business that, started with very small beginnings.
Yeah.
So it kind of taught me, I was like, okay, like business is really cool. Like owning a business, running a company, operationally, what that should look like. It instilled a lot of those different business related skills or activities and, productiveness and just planning all that kind of stuff in me at a young age. And I'm like, okay, with real estate, my situation, coming from a different brokerage, different model where leads were given to me. Now that I have since switched, created my own team, now it's all based on our own efforts. It's changed how I look at the business, and I treat it much more as a business and more client relational than I did when you first met me.
So, and I totally get that, right? We, very reactional at the first place. Leads are coming in, and also during a time when it was rates were low,
Yeah.
and it was a high season in our industry.
Right.
I mean, it was a little fire hose, right? Yeah. And so very reactional,
Yeah.
right? But then after when the hose shut off, and over the last 18 months, it's gone the other way. You've put in those systems in place, right? So what was the catalyst to that, to go back? Was it just that, like, hey, it went down and I need to start doing this? Or was there something that was shown to you where you're like, hey, I now need to do that?
Yeah, so that was the market is definitely a catalyst in changing the direction of my business. But I think the other thing, though, is it actually allowed me time to step back when it wasn't like drinking through a fire hose, to where we have so many activities going on in our day, that I could look at the business instead of working in the business. I'm working on the business, right? And I'm finding systems that I can implement, systems that align with how I want to operate and the people that I want to work with. So it was just a different way, a different structure of me actually taking a step back from the business and giving myself some time to look at the business that I want to create, and then just start putting that in place.
I love it. So what's some of the systems that you have in place now that are fundamental? Like, these are the foundational things that I don't see myself ever to stop doing.
Client relations is the first and foremost. I mean, before it was a little bit more transactional when it came to actually just getting deals done. So I got a lot of reps. I had a lot of experience in helping clients get from A to B. But before and after, that was kind of where we had the missing key. So I really focus on that now, as far as building the relationships, doing the follow-up, and just being a larger part of these people's lives, which is when I transitioned into real estate, what I really came here to accomplish was really to just have those relationships and to start to educate people on what their options are and how to go about this process in a really strategic and smart way. So that's the biggest thing that I focused on, is just the client relations aspect. From the business side of things, now it's things like having automation with my lead follow-up. So, putting VAs in place, having a system that actually sends out automated texts and email campaigns for me. So I'm doing the follow-up, and all of those things are coming, directly from my account. But it's just a way that helps me leverage my time, so where I can be doing other tasks while those are going out, and then come back to them at a later time. So just different things like that. Hiring people, hiring VAs, and then putting systems in place from a marketing perspective have been the big catalyst in my business.
Because I can imagine, I come from a place where all the leads are brought to me. Now I've got to I'm in a place where I've got to generate the business myself. Right. So as these are coming in, and I love it, leveraging the technology and AI to stay in front of them with the texts and the emails. Do you do anything to insert yourself at strategic points so they see like, hey, I'm a human, like shooting a video, or you personally phone call them, things like that, where there's strategic spots where you're doing that?
Yep. The strategic spot is really, so the initial phone call is me. So if anybody gives any kind of response and says, hey, I want to do a call, I'm jumping on the call. I'm doing that. We're putting a strategy in place at that time, whether they're ready to go right now or they're going to be 2 years down the line. I still want to put a strategy in place. Maybe they need credit repair at that point, and now I can connect them with an individual like you that can help them with that process. But I need to know that information up front, so then we can put a plan in place to help them get to where they need to be.
Do you leverage like a Zoom for that too, or face-to-face? Or, I mean, if they're in the market?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of the people that I'm talking to are out of state. They're leads that are coming in from online, and they're researching Phoenix. They're researching Scottsdale. They don't know exactly what they're looking for. They just heard that, Phoenix is a great place to be right now, and there's a lot going on, job opportunities and everything else. So that's where their starting point is. So I try to meet them wherever they're at. If they're here locally, absolutely, I'll go have coffee with them. I'll set a meeting with them. But I do the Zooms a lot. I do Zooms and, Loom videos to kind of walk them through different systems that I'm looking at on my end that gives them a better understanding of what I'm seeing. And then we do Zoom calls, and we can record that, so then they can refer back to something that was said at minute 14 or whatever it is. So it just works out better that way, to where it can still be relational, but it's technology focused, so that way we're optimizing our time, and it gives me more opportunities to connect with more people.
Dude, I love that. I love the leveraging technology to enhance the relationship, not take away from it. Right. And then I love that, using the Loom video to share how you're researching stuff or what you're seeing. Or I once had a person, we were saying, you send out a link to a property, like, hey, I think this one might be something that you like. Let's start here, right? And it's up to them to then click on it, look at stuff. Whereas if you recorded yourself walking them through hey, I noticed you like the RV gate, check out this one, look at this backyard. You can navigate through the photos and give them the link to peruse on their own, but you've just enhanced the experience of the client.
Yeah, you could almost say, here's the property that I looked at. I know it meets a lot of the criteria that you had told me that you were looking for in a home, but here's why I think this is a good fit for you. The HOA is only $43 a month, and locationally, look at these things that are in the surrounding area. It's in a neighborhood that's gated, or the community, the schools that are in the community around this neighborhood are exactly what you were looking for when you told me about your child, and what you want their education to look like. So yeah, I think that customizing that and making it a little bit more personal to them is definitely a way to leverage technology to where it helps benefit the relationship.
Yeah, and it benefits the relationship, gets me deeper into the relationship with them.
Right.
Going back, so other than that, what's another source, or do you have another source of your business, where you get business from?
Yeah, so social media is one that I'm working on right now.
Nice.
It's been a big part of my business for a while now. It's just something that when I was so busy just servicing clients, I didn't make as much time for. But now I'm coming back to social media because it's just a way to spread, awareness of educational opportunities, what's going on in the market, how's everything looking from a macro perspective, a micro perspective. It's just a way to communicate that's a little bit more open. Versus having that one-to-one conversation. I like to say that social media is one-to-many versus one-to-one. So I could pick up the phone and I could make one phone call, or I could put out one video and 13,000 people could see it. So it's like, who is benefiting more in that scenario, right? Because it's like, those 13,000 people, I could reach 7 or 8 people that see that, and it sparks something in them to where now, instead of making that one phone call, it's like I have an opportunity to connect with these 7 or 8 people that just saw that message.
Right.
So for me, it's just a way to leverage time, but it's also a way to do it in a non-threatening way. Sometimes people are hesitant to pick up the phone because they're getting spam calls or whatever else. And it's just like, you know, it's on them if they want to watch a video and interact with, you know, the content that they're seeing. So for me, it's a very low level, but it has the ability to reach a lot of people.
Do you have now that you're getting back into it, right? And maybe it's something that's more of, hey, this is what I'm doing right now, but I'm actually going to start doing a little bit more or whatever. Do you have a rhythm or flow or standards that you have around the social media?
Everything that I am going to be doing on social media, the only rule really is it has to serve a purpose. So whether it is for a client, and that's going to be, you know, outreach to help them identify a property or to help sell a property or to, you know, showcase an investment opportunity for a client, it has to be something like that. Or if it's from the other side, like an educational side, it just has to provide value. I'm not going to put out content that is meaningless. So I really just want to focus on truly providing value with everything that I'm doing, whether it's going to be for a client or it's going to be for somebody that I've never met.
Right. Well, and I remember even some of your stuff that was not business, was personal. Like, you know, you go into the gym, but you took it one step further and it wasn't, hey, I'm at the gym. You were putting in your workout. So literally someone could follow you and have a workout routine.
Yeah.
Right. And you're in good shape. I see the gym a lot. You've been uber consistent with that. And I think people would model that. Right. And then they see that and they see the diligent, persistent work put in at the gym, but also sharing that back, connect with you that way. Also see another post later of you touring some property or helping a client or handing off some keys, and then go, oh, and then I see a lot of the real estate content, and then maybe they'll transact with you that way. Yet they connected because of the gym post.
Right. Yeah. It's, I mean, anything that I'm doing, even for my own personal life, it's kind of my brand, right? Like I'm not trying to only showcase certain parts of my life. Like I want you to know the person that you're going to be doing business with. And I think that that starts, you know, from sharing a little bit about one another and what your life looks like outside of your work. So it's a good way for me to connect with people. And, you know, I've connected with a lot of people in ways through social media that had nothing to do with real estate. You know, people like golfing or people like working out or people like, you know, my dogs,
the doodle.
You know, the doodle. It's like they'll comment on that. And that's like the segue into a conversation that leads to a real estate conversation. But had they not seen the post about the dog or the content about the dog, they might not have reached out.
Correct. Yeah, I like that. So do you have a, so we have the, I'm going to give them a glimpse at everything, right? Not just one aspect of my life. Are there any other things you're purposely doing on social or going to do on purpose on social to be able to drum up more business?
Yeah, so for me, it's just the consistency. It's kind of like the gym. I think anything that you want to do at a high level, you have to show up consistently and do that. So for me, it's going to be shooting more content. It's going to be putting more ideas down on paper and then actually going out and executing on them. And it's going to be, you know, cataloging that whole process and just figuring out, you know, what do people really want to see outside of my personal stuff, like from a real estate perspective, because that's my job. What type of knowledge and what type of opportunities can I provide them that would benefit them? And that's really the main focus, is just trying to stay current with what's going on and where I can provide value.
So you seem analytical too. Do you ever analyze the social stuff, the posts, and say, well, that one got a lot of reach or that one got some more comments, maybe I should do more of that stuff, right? Like for me, if I shoot something about a loan program or how to help someone with their credit, I get a lot off of that. And I think, and not even now, just even over the last few years, because people want more information about that. Like, oh, how do I help my credit score, right? And I just get more. So then I'm like, oh, I just need to shoot more of those along the other stuff. But I'm looking at the analytics, right? Do you ever see like certain posts about certain topics you've gotten more views or engagement with?
Yeah. So for me, I think the biggest thing is I actually just kind of go based off strategies that other realtors have implemented that are doing content at a high level. So whether that's YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, whatever it is, a lot of the information I think that I can almost repurpose, but put my own personality, my own spin on it. And, you know, locationally, it's going to be different because they might be in a California-based market and we're here in Phoenix.
So you see what's doing good for them. Like, oh, that video got a lot of views for that person out of San Francisco or San Diego or wherever.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I can phrase that a different way for fitting to my market.
Exactly.
And then, okay, that's a great strategy.
Yeah, so I mean, just repurposing it. There's also still a lot of original content creation that I want to do as well, because again, I want to have my own flavor and my own personality associated with it.
Right.
But I think there's something to be said about not recreating the wheel. You know, it's just there's proven methods that people utilize for social media purposes. Times on when you post, how many times you post, you know, what kind of hooks you use to really get people engaged with you for the first 5 seconds, all that kind of stuff. Yes, those are things that I'm going to be implementing with all of my content here going forward. It's just going to take some time to get it to that consistent point where I really want, where we want it to be.
So we got the online leads, we've got social media. Is there another pillar to the business?
Clients, like referrals. You know,
okay, so working on your sphere database kind of stuff.
My sphere, and what that's going to include going forward is a little bit more like business relationships. So lenders, financial advisors, contractors, leveraging all those relationships that I already have to create opportunities there. And then my own sphere as well, as far as just clients that I've worked with in the past or people who know me.
Do you have a plan or playbook for how you stay in touch with the past clients?
Yes.
What's that look like?
So the playbook is really a multi-touch system. So what that looks like for me right now is they're getting a monthly newsletter. So that's 1 touch per month.
Is that mailed or emailed?
Emailed.
Okay.
Yep. They're getting a mailer as well. So they're already getting that in the mail also. They're getting a quarterly text message or phone call. They're seeing social media posts, and I'm engaging with their social media posts as well. So whether they just had a, you know, son or daughter who was in a championship, you know, swim meet or tennis match. Hey, you know, that's really awesome. I saw that Sadie, you know, was in that championship meet last weekend. You know, that's really cool. I love to see that. Congratulations. That's
killer.
Awesome.
That's killer.
You know, so just stuff like that to where I'm interacting with them consistently. So they're getting stuff from me monthly. They're getting reach outs, you know, via email, mail, phone call, text, social media. And then I'm working on putting some client event type opportunities together as well. So we're going to do those quarterly also. So most of my clients are going to hear from me, I would say probably 30 to 40 times a year.
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid. Now going back to the social with the clients, right? So do you have them grouped a certain way, or do you like, hey, I'm going to check in on 5 a day? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's normally a number. So I literally take my past client database and my sphere database, and I divide it by the number of days in the year. And I say that's how many people I need to reach per day to cover my whole network. And normally that plays out to like 6 to 7 contacts per day. Pretty manageable. And we just roll with it that way.
And then you're rolling through 6 or 7 socials of each of those people, or it's one of the touches that you've already mentioned?
It's one of the touches. So it's either a phone call or a text message, or it's engaging with a social media post. Whatever it is on that day, we're just doing that one activity for those 6 or 7 people. Yep.
I love it. I just like that there's a system, but there's also you can go to sleep at night knowing that for sure you're going to be top of mind with your people. Because at some point in time, they're going to buy or sell real estate again.
Right.
And they could potentially refer along the way.
Right.
The question is, will they come back to you or me or whomever serviced them? And the answer is more likely yes when you're doing 30 plus purposeful touches.
Right.
Right. It's not just generic stuff that's going out. There's personal touches woven in with the automatic stuff.
Right.
I've actually been researching newsletters. So how do you do the newsletter?
The newsletter for me, it's a mix. So it's kind of like current market stats, what that looks like. It's my own activity, what me and my team did this month that's associated with real estate. It's, you know, any event that we might have coming up that they're invited to. And it's maybe something personal that's going on in my life. You know, hey, I just got married, or, you know, hey, we just got a new dog. Here's a picture of him, you know, just little stuff like that. So where they feel like they have a little bit deeper of a relationship with me. And, you know, that way, hopefully, next time I reach out to them, they're like, hey, saw the picture of the dog. Yeah, that's really cool. What's his name? You know, or something like that. So again, it's just kind of that personal touch to where it's like, intermixing my personal life with my business life, with some accomplishments and anything that might be education based that they could actually gain some value from.
I like that a lot. How much time on average does it take you to do your newsletter?
I would say that takes me a couple hours per week. Just finding the content, the photos, that kind of stuff to put together. But I did actually reach out to a couple companies recently that are going to help me outsource that. So once that's implemented, we'll see how that looks. But I'm excited for that, just as far as gaining some of that time back.
Right.
And that way it's still getting done. There's a system in place, but it allows me to, leverage a little bit more in my business once again.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you doing that through like a Canva or something like that?
As far as creating the actual graphics,
Yeah.
yes. And then putting it into a send out program
Right.
that has my email list attached to it, and then just doing it that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's just the time creating it, doing the research to then go into Canva to create it all.
Right.
Then the other
To then
stuff's just all
typing the
tech stuff.
content, to then
Right.
uploading the photos, to
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and figuring out like what photo am I gonna use this time, or
Right.
scrolling through like, hey Maddie, what did we do this month?
Right.
That I can go through, or you got any pictures of the dogs that we can post? Yeah. What I've found whenever I mail or email stuff that's, it's a testimonial or, listing, accolade, whatever, they see it and
Yeah.
it's deleted or thrown away.
Yeah.
But when they get just went on a cruise, just got married, just got a new dog, they're like texting you, hey
Yeah.
man, saw about the new dog, congrats.
Right.
Or the next time you call them, they're like, hey, how's the dog?
Right.
How's married life? So they always remember that stuff even more. You have to do both, but the
Right.
one that makes the most impact, because you're a relational based realtor, and even though internet lead is transactional, you do a great job of getting them into relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking, off camera, was how do you get someone from online to offline, and having that speed to lead, it's me first, then having a pleasantly persistent value added tech follow up that's keeping them nurtured, so to
Engaged, yeah.
speak, engaged with purposeful value, but then intermixing myself in there,
Right.
but somehow getting them to where I get their home address in Chicago,
Yeah.
and now they're on your mail system,
Right.
Or they're in the email getting that newsletter, and then they're seeing the beautiful weather in the park with the dogs, and they're like, oh man, we really need to get down there because
Right.
it's not nice here. It's windy in
Yeah.
Chicago or wherever they are. And so that's having that plan in place and making it more personalized is awesome. Is there any other, like that's 3 solid legs of the system. Is there any others?
No, that's what I'm working on. I'm working on social media, online leads, and then my own sphere and
Cool.
referrals.
Now you mentioned the team. So it's brother, sister-in-law.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, TC and VA.
Okay.
So, there are a couple other components, but, as far as anything that's front facing, it's going to be the three of us.
Now, I'd say I just use the word independent, like you run your business, he runs his business, she runs her business, or do you guys commingle on some things?
We commingle on some things.
And
So
what does that look like?
Yeah, so for us, the buyer side of the business, again, inserting myself into a strategic place in that conversation or that relationship, that's how I like to run that side of things. So the way that we typically go about that is I'm the one doing the initial reach out. I'm the one that's doing the actual strategy session with the buyer, figuring out what that looks like for them. When it comes to the actual showing process and getting into some homes and figuring out locationally where do they want to be, what does the home need to look like, that's where I start to bring Ben and Kaylin into the mix and have them help with that part of the process. Both of them are as equally outgoing, if not more, than I am.
Awesome.
And they love to be client facing, and I think that that's where their real value lies. So I let them handle that part of the process and just say, hey, we're all going to take care of this person from a very high level. I'm going to do a little bit of the behind the scenes, kind of the strategy, put it in place. Then we're going to do some legwork to get them to where they need to be. When it comes to doing additional negotiations, I'm going to step back in and we're going to, get them a really great deal and hammer out the details of that and what that's going to look like. And then all along the way, they have multiple touch points and multiple people to communicate with, myself, my brother, my sister-in-law, and we just try to make it as seamless of a process as possible, letting them know that yes, this is a real estate transaction, but we want to be friends during that process and after.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's pretty cool. Now, do you find it's so most businesses have it's called a capacity curve, right? Like I can only do so many loans by myself. And then if I grab a teammate, then we can scale up, but then we're going to hit a capacity again.
Right.
So if I want to get to another level, I have to keep bringing on the right people.
Right.
So you've leveraged, we have 2 family members, TC, VA. Are you nearing a capacity right now, or you're in a good spot? And at some point later, we might have to look at bringing somebody else on.
yeah, I would say that right now we're at a good spot. I mean, running the model that I used to be a part of and doing between 15 to 20 escrows per month at any given time.
Like you get it.
It prepared me to take on a volume of business if needed. But honestly, I think at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we service the clients well that we're currently working with. That number could be 5 or it could be 12. We don't really know what that's going to look like until we kind of sit down and figure out, hey, are we going to convert this lead this month, or are they still 3-4 months down the line? What does that look like when we take a look at our pipeline and our business plan? But we have the capacity. So, between my brother, my sister-in-law, myself, we can all run at a really fast pace. I would say that we're in a good place, and it'll be a little while before we would need to bring anybody else on.
What would be the next hire?
That's a good question. I would say the next hire for us would probably be more like VA type personnel. I really think that client facing, we can accomplish everything that we want to accomplish with just the 3 of us at the moment. But there could be some more back end roles that are taken away from our business that allow us to be more out in the field and
right.
doing the phone calls, doing the client meetings, representing our clients that we currently have under contract or we're creating relationships with. I think if we were to leverage anything, it would be the back end stuff, the office-based stuff that we might be able to outsource to a VA or a person like that.
Yeah, cool. I like that. So you mentioned business plan. Is there a target number you guys had for units or volume for 24?
Yeah.
What's that number?
That's going to be 50 units, and it's going to be 28 million in sales volume.
Nice. Okay. Now we're just about through, Q1 in 30 days. Why are we, it's only 2 months in, but are we on track from lead count coming in?
Yes. Yeah. We're on track. We're slightly above that unit count right now.
Solid.
And that's what we're pacing for.
Yeah. Well, and we're just getting into the spring buying season of Phoenix. So would you guys sit down and say, hey guys, it's halftime. It's Q2's over.
Yeah.
We're 3/4 of the way to our goal. Should we push this? Do we do that? Will you have like meetings along the way that said, hey, I think we need to do something here?
For us, it's never take the foot off the gas pedal. Like that doesn't exist in our world. I think the way that I grew up, the way that my brother grew up, very, sports driven backgrounds. Like if I'm exceeding my goal by Q2, we'll just double it.
Right. We're not laying off the gas.
End the year strong, right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't really entice me to, just barely squeak by a goal and to coast. I mean, if we're at that point where we're operating that well in our business and there's additional opportunities, we're going to start to implement other things in our business that are going to allow us to scale and grow even more.
Have you thought about what the other things might be? Or is it just doubling down on the stuff you're already doing?
I think it's doubling down on the stuff that we're already doing. I think that so many people like to overcomplicate, the very important basics, fundamentals of their business. And if they were just able to focus and stay consistent with those things, they would not only see the results that they've had so far, but they would, double, triple, quadruple, whatever their efforts were creating for them before.
Now, I see a lot in the industry. There's I'm going to be solo. I'm going to be a team. I'm going to be on a team. I'm going to have people on my team or people under me, like a downline of some sort. Where do you fall in the mix? Obviously, you have a team, so that's great. Do you ever see yourself like, hey, I think I'm going to add other agents that don't work my clients, but I'm going to help and mentor them? Because you have obviously systems and structure in place. You could easily do that, but that would then take away from production. Is that ever a thing that you think maybe down the road you might do as a give back to the industry?
Yeah, I think that I've always wanted to be in a position to where I can give back further. So I think as the business continues to grow, and maybe the brand even, if agents want to align with the brand and they can recognize the type of systems that we have in place and how we operate, and they feel that they would be a good fit for that, let's have a conversation. I'm never against bringing on people. It's just, it has to be the right fit and it has to be the right timing. And so the way that I look at it is, if there's an opportunity for me to give back further and to take more of a mentorship role without taking away from the business and the clients that we already service, let's do it.
That's the key right there, right? Because
Right.
if I have to spend time with a lot of training or onboarding or mentorship, right, that's taken away from my current business, then it doesn't work, because
Right.
my first and primary is the clients,
Right.
which is what serves my family and my team the most.
Right.
Right. But if there's a way that those systems are so dialed in, and like you said, that I can buy back time, now I can free that up to do that if I wanted to.
Right.
So I really like that. That's cool. So as you move in, we start to get into the busier season. What do you see happening in our market? I know no one's got the crystal ball. I can't figure this stuff out. I've been doing it 20 years, right?
Yeah.
But what do you see right now in our market?
So I think that our market is going to stay similar to what it's been for the past couple months. I think that since the start of the new year, so the first quarter that we're coming to an end here now, I think it's going to stay consistent with that. I hope that rates come down a little bit further to allow for more buyer opportunity and more affordability in our market. But even if things were to stay consistent, the market is still moving at a nice pace that allows both buyers and sellers to accomplish what they're wanting to accomplish. Our inventory, as it comes out, it's almost being equally purchased at this point. So there's really no, one-sided way in our market at the moment. It's kind of equal bargaining ship between buyers and sellers. Granted, that's going to be dependent on location, price point, everything else, all those other factors. But from what I've seen, it's a pretty healthy, balanced market. And what I would forecast going forward is it's going to stay similar to that. If interest rates drop, I think there's going to be even higher buyer demand to move here, and that could potentially be a catalyst for increased home values and potential bidding wars and less seller concessions in transactions that are occurring. But it's going to be very dependent on the rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a coin toss. I mean, some people thought we were going to get a reduction from the Fed in March. Now
Right.
they're thinking May, but they're still not sure about May, which would then be July, September. It's like just kicking the can.
Right. And when the Fed had originally come out, they said that they were going to cut rates 4 times this year. That was the plan. And March came around, and they didn't do that. They didn't execute on it. So now it's like, okay, the market's in the same place that it was in January at the beginning of the year. So now everybody's kind of looking towards that next meeting saying, okay, is this actually going to happen? Is this going to allow me that 50 basis point, 75 basis point drop in rates to allow affordability for my clients that are kind of sitting on the sidelines and waiting for that to see if they're able to afford the house that they want to purchase? And I think that's really going to be the driving factor, is where are the rates at? There's always going to be demand for Phoenix just because we have a lot going on in this market that's attractive. Our jobs market, our infrastructure, our weather, there's just a lot of nice things about Phoenix and Scottsdale. So we're always going to have that demand, but I think it's going to be driven on rates and affordability as well.
Yeah. What do you think about there's this window of time, because you mentioned it, rates come down a little bit, great. They come down a lot of it, now you have a problem.
Right.
Right. And there's that, and right there, it's the day before they take a super drop is your time to get in, because you get the
Right.
seller concessions, the price is still the same. Because the second they go down enough, and I don't know what that number is, but when you see maybe it's a point, you see anything that starts with a 5, it's over.
Yeah.
And I say over meaning demand, multiple offers, definitely no concessions. And now your affordability issue is not, I can afford the payment. It's, can I afford the extra money to buy the house, right?
Yeah.
You buy the $1 million house and you're having to pay 20 grand cash on the side because you can't finance over the appraised value.
Right.
Right. And so we lived through that. You were doing hundreds of transactions with that and having to deal with that emotional strain, not only just on you, but that you were carrying for all your clients, getting beat out and just, oh my gosh, what is happening right now?
Right.
And most got into houses that they didn't even really want.
Right.
Because
it
was
just got
almost
into whatever was available.
Yeah. And then they get it and they waive inspection and they get in like, wait, there's all these problems. And now they're coming out of pocket. And then they're still mad because they didn't get the cul-de-sac, quiet area thing they really wanted. They settled.
Right.
Because of the rate they were getting.
Right.
And now they're just having a hard time moving from the rate.
Right.
2.6, 3 point whatever. And they're like, I don't want to go to 6.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Right.
But to move to 5 from 3 to 5, not as painful. But the pain point is going to be the prices are super high and you may be paying a little penalty fee over to get the house.
That's right.
Is it kind of what you're seeing?
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. If rates come down, like you said, a little bit, I think that's going to be favorable for the market. It just kind of keeps everything consistent and steady. But if they drop enough, I think it's going to create an increased demand. And, we are going to be absorbing our housing supply faster than it comes to the market. And a lot of people already don't want to give up their 3.5%, 2.5% interest rate. So if they're sitting there and there's really not a lot of inventory for people to choose from, again, we're going to run into that situation of, we're going to have to settle. We're going to have to settle. We're going to have to overpay. We're going to have to, come out of pocket cash to make this thing work. And then we're going to have to fix the roof after that. So, it creates a point in our market to where one side is a little bit more favorable than the other.
Right.
Which I think is just inevitable if the rates drop to that point.
Yeah. And you brought a good point. It's like, I'd say we're repeating what happened during that COVID time, but what do they say? It may not repeat, but it rhymes.
Yep.
Like it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
Because rates won't get down to 2 or 3%, which then would be repeating that. But we're going to see some glimpses of that. And maybe it doesn't happen overnight, but there is going to be this window of opportunity that you're going to see.
Yep.
Let's lastly talk about the flips and investments, because I know that's your game. You've been doing that even before you were officially licensed. So are you seeing a lot of investment opportunities for your investors right now? Do you have people buying the investment properties, knowing for the upside appreciation and where the payments are to where rents are? Like, what are you seeing in that space?
It's a really tight market right now. So as far as if you're looking for a long-term investment property that's going to cash flow, those margins are going to be really slim. So you might find a property that's going to cash flow $2,800 a month, and your payment plus expenses is going to be $2,500, $2,600. I mean, that's how tight of a market that we're talking about. Now, it depends on what you're purchasing the property for, because people have all sorts of different reasons to purchase a property. They have to, relocate, and for a year or two, it's going to be a secondary home, but eventually they're going to move here, make it their primary, potentially consider a refinance option, which would allow them to lessen the interest rate, lessen the monthly payment associated with the property. And in that process, it could be used for a rental property that could create them income. It could be used as a tax deduction, depending on how they structure it. It could be moving funds from one existing investment property to another via 1031 exchange. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at properties as investments, and even if they don't cash flow, they could still make financial sense. It just depends on how you want to play that game and what your end goal is.
That's killer. Cool, man. Well, good. I'm good, man. I appreciate you coming today. I want to bring you back, though, and talk more, especially about the social strategies as you're implementing those, but then also the investment opportunities, because I think that's a big game for people to massively accumulate wealth and fast track to retirement is investing in real estate.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's an opportunity that's always been there, and I don't think it's going away tomorrow. So I'd love to come back and retouch on that and see where we're at a couple months from now.
Killer. Thanks, brother.
Appreciate it.